Alex, I want to come to you next. You're the General Counsel at Lightsource BP for the EMEA region. And you're obviously developing projects across the region, looking at how different countries vary in terms of how they manage their grid queues, how they're incentivizing or creating a regulatory framework for battery storage, for BESS, co-located or standalone. Can you tell us a bit about the trends that you're seeing and the changes that you've seen over the last year?
Thanks, Sonia. I mean, it's a good time to be a lawyer. That's one thing I'd say in if you're working in European regulation in the renewable sector. It's interesting because I'd say all the European markets in the UK obviously have what I would say same systemic problems, and I don't think I'd be, spoiler alert if I was to say the grid is probably one of the biggest challenges. However, how all the markets sort of approach that challenge is interestingly different, and it also is very reactive to kind of how the market moves. So I think the number one comment I'd say it's very dynamic at the moment, which is why particularly Spain, I sort of start my Monday meeting asking the team if we've had another surprise royal decree for the week. Couple of themes. I'd say there's definitely a move towards transparency. So you'll see markets like Spain and Italy who are kind of moving to a model where they will publish grid capacity and have, particularly in Italy, they've just announced the open season framework. We'll be able to sort of apply for grid capacity. I'd say there's very much a movement towards, like in the UK, showing that you are ready. So there's prioritization of projects, either that, for example, like in Germany, where you have sort of scorecards, or where you've sort of further down in advancement with permitting. I'd say most markets now introducing some sort of financial commitment, either upfront or gradual. That's come in Poland. We're talking it's a hot topic in the UK. In most of the markets, you'll have upfront deposits or commitment fees, which can be, they can grow incrementally. And I'd say you have to hit milestones, and that has a number of implications, not just for the development process, but also financing, and with your offtake structures as well. So you have to demonstrate that the projects are moving forward. And last but not least, another problem we're having to pivot for is demand. Huge issue with demand capacity, and a lot of the structures and the regulations that are coming in are reactive to real peak in the last few years of oversubscription for demand capacity in the market. And obviously one of the solutions for that is BESS. So then to follow on from battery storage, a lot of the frameworks that are coming in at the moment are to effectively incentivize the rollout for battery storage, in some cases almost too successfully, which I'm sure some of us will touch on in the UK, and similarly in Germany. So I think principally it's so dynamic, it's incredibly interesting, but it involves having to kind of understand how the specific market conditions, do tailor the frameworks, the regulatory frameworks, but I don't think it's going to be static, it's going to change. And when you have your project, you're going to have to expect that the requirements are going to change as well.
And what percentage of the markets, let's just take Europe, right? What percentage of the markets that you work in have a good regulatory framework for battery storage, allowing them to bid into the different ancillary services markets? Roughly, would you say it's half-half? Would you say it's most of them? Broadly
it's interesting because I think the UK we've been ahead of the curve.
Yes,
absolutely.
So
if you look at most of the markets, they're not all as developed as us in having a revenue stack where you've got merchant, ancillary services, capacity markets.
Yep.
And some markets are actually, the ones that would be surprising to catch up are ones like Spain, where they still haven't got a capacity market in effect. It's still going through state aid clearance. You'd think that was a bit of a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So some markets are really playing catch-up, Spain being a good example, partly in response to the blackout last year, and then more recently they've announced a new sort of raft of packages to address the crisis in the Middle East. Some markets like Germany are having, they've had a framework which is really incentivized deployment. You've got exemptions from grid fees. They've, I'd say, stimulated a bit of consolidation by making contributions to grid costs mandatory for BESS projects as well. But now they've almost got too much, and so to make sure that zombie projects aren't kind of clogging the system, they're having to put in place a scorecard system for capacity. Yeah. But I'd say that overall, the UK should be pretty proud of itself because we've had quite a good framework to encourage deployment. we're now going to have to make some tough choices as part of the connections reform, because we've been almost too good, and the planning and the permitting is sort of accelerated, bears a little bit too much potentially. I'm sure some of us will comment on that.